The Medellin Cartel was the first and biggest drug cartel in Colombia. At the height of its power, the cartel made roughly $100 million in pure profit. At its peak, they supplied 96% of the United States cocaine and controlled 90% of the global cocaine market. The rise of the Medellin Cartel. The Medellin Cartel's most famous member is Pablo Escobar. Known as the King of Cocaine, Escobar was also the wealthiest criminal in history, at one point raking in $2.1 billion in personal income in 1 year. He was so rich he even had his own zoo. By the time of Pablo Escobar's death, he was worth a known $30 billion. While the world knew him as a vicious, dangerous criminal, the residents of Medellin thought of him as a successful and generous businessman. Within the local cities, he had made a name for himself as a generous donor to the slums of Medellin, particularly the children of the poor. Escobar got his start in the late 70s when the cocaine trade took off. Following the drug movement of the 60s, demand for psychoactive drugs increased. Due to its tropical climate, Colombia became the #1 grower of the coca plant. Escobar entered the drug business by smuggling coca paste, the unrefined version of the plant's leaves. He would refine the paste himself and hire mules to smuggle the resulting powder into the United States, either in their luggage or in condoms filled with it. Eventually, Pablo Escobar teamed up with Carlos Leder and George Young, two fellow Medellin cartel members who had expertise in flight trafficking. They organized flights into South Florida through the Bahamas, using small biplanes that could fly below the radar and land on unmarked dirt roads in the Everglades. Escobar would also enlist his cousin, Gustavo Jesus Gaviria Rivero, to join the growing Medellin cartel. For years, Rivero operated the cartel quietly behind Escobar's leadership. He developed the routes that the cartels used and maintained order over them, while Escobar was making a name for himself. The tracking down from the government. When the government began cracking down on drug smuggling, Rivero was the one who thought up alternative measures. Rather than move to different, less effective routes, Rivero began hiding cocaine in shipments of things that were legal, such as fruits, clothing, and appliances. He would mix the drug into fruit pulp, cocoa powder, wine, and even clothing. Once in the United States, trained chemists would extract the drug. Over time, the American government began to pick up on the Medellin cartel's movements and tricks. However, Rivero and Escobar were always one step ahead of everyone else. They constantly moved their channels, switching from the tourist-infested shores of the Bahamas to Haiti. The cartel's thousands of crimes. As part of doing business, the cartel was naturally involved in violence and crime that extended beyond drug smuggling. The exact numbers of murders carried out by the cartel members or on their orders is unknown, though some experts put the number at around 4,000. They weren't just killing civilians or other drug cartel members either. At least 1,000 of them were Medellin police officers or journalists, while 200 were judges and Colombian government officials. They even killed the Colombian president, Luis Carlos Galen, as he was about to walk on stage to give a speech in front of 10,000 people. In 1989, Escobar and the Medellin cartel were responsible for the single deadliest criminal attack in Colombian history. In an attempt to assassinate presidential candidate Cesar Gaviria Trujillo, the cartel placed a bomb on board Avianca Flight 203. Moments after it took off, the plane exploded over the town of Socha, killing 107 people. Though many of their crimes were well publicized, thousands of murders, kidnappings, and terrorist attacks went unreported. The fall of the Medellin cartel. By the early 1980s, cocaine had become an epidemic and the war on drugs had been declared. Crack cocaine, a cheaper and more addictive alternative to the pure powder, had ravaged America's inner cities and sparked the government to increase pressure on Colombia to capture the drug lords, namely Escobar and the rest of the Medellin cartel. However, despite a formal extradition order from the US and increased Colombian police presence, Escobar managed to evade capture. He vowed never to surrender to the United States or anyone else and continued to run his ring from inside Colombia. While running out of options, newly organized Drug Enforcement Administration sent two officers, Javier Pina and Steve Murphy, down to Colombia to assist the Colombian government in capturing Escobar and extraditing him to the US. Within days, Escobar had put a $300,000 hit out on Pina and Murphy. The two officers were immediately placed under watch by local authorities, unable to move about Medellin unsupervised. However, the bounties drove other organizations to up their search efforts, and soon the PPS, which were people persecuted by Pablo Escobar, was formed, a militant group determined to bring him to justice. In 1991, it seemed as if they would get their wish. Feeling pressure from the police, Los Peps, and rival cartels, Escobar finally arranged his surrender. However, he was determined not to be incarcerated like any old drug mule. Instead, he set it up so that he could serve his time in La Catedral, a luxury prison of his own design, which sat on a hill overlooking Medellin. Of course, being Pablo Escobar, he was able to escape La Catedral in no time and was back on the streets trafficking drugs almost before authorities had realized what happened. Soon, however, evading arrest began to take a toll on Escobar. He soon became paranoid, turning to murder and violence quicker than before, eventually murdering two of his allies. The end of Escobar. Finally, one day after his 44th birthday, Pablo Escobar was taken down. He had made a mistake, ultimately a fatal one, by lingering too long on a phone call with his son, Juan Pablo Escobar. Police were able to track the signal and surround the house. As Escobar tried to escape to the rooftops, he was gunned down by Colombian authorities. Within moments, Pablo Escobar was dead. Though Escobar was gone, Medellin cartel was far from over. Their distribution networks, some of the most efficient in the world, are still in use. The city of Medellin, once ravaged by crime, hovering at roughly 6,000 homicides per year, now plays host to skyscrapers and high-rise apartments. The economy has equalized, opening up to culture and art and lowering gang activity. The torment that the cartel put the city through pushed it to become bigger, better and faster than before. Though crime still exists, the residents of the city claim it is stronger than ever before. Before we go, let us know in the comments below if you enjoyed this video. Please click the like button and subscribe so you get notified when we upload new videos. Thank you guys, and until the next episode.